So, without further ado, I want to bring back our illustrious MC, J.C. Polanco, to have our great, fabulous dinner program.
Thank you so much, President Orson. Thank you. Not only do we know he's a great club president, but we didn't know you were so romantic. That was nice. That was nice, right? All you gentlemen have to step up your game tonight, huh? You got some pressure on him. All right, without any further ado, on behalf of the Queens Village Republican Club, it is my honor to introduce the Executive Vice President of the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kim Holmes. We are very sorry that President K. Coles James, who was to deliver the opening keynote address and has been a tour all across America, has taken ill and will not be here to attend. She sends her well wishes and deepest apologies, but we are very grateful to have the Executive Vice President of the Heritage Foundation, Dr. Kim Holmes. Dr. Holmes is an author, a former American diplomat, an Assistant Secretary of State, a distinguished fellow at the Heritage Foundation. He oversaw the think tank's defense and foreign policy team for more than 2 decades. As a historian of U.S. political movements and ideology, Dr. Holmes' latest book, The Closing of the Liberal Mind, reveals how liberals in America are turning their backs on their traditions and have become a force of illiberalism, namely denying their fellow Americans rights and freedoms. We are really honored today to have Dr. Holmes with us today. Dr. Holmes, would you come up and speak to our wonderful Republicans? Thank you.
J.C., thank you very much for that wonderful introduction. There's a lot of energy in this room. It's an incredible honor to be here. My name is Kim Holmes, and the Holmes family comes from a long family of Republicans from the state of Ohio. As a matter of fact, I have next to my office, I have a picture of a gentleman whose name is, he was my great-uncle, and his name is Arnold Porter Holmes. And he fought with General Grant in the Civil War. As a matter of fact, he was killed on the first day of the siege of Vicksburg at the age of 18. And my family from Ohio and Kentucky and even West Virginia have been Republicans ever since. So it's a deep personal honor for me to be here and invited to speak to you today. Heritage President K. Cole James, she's very sad that she cannot be with you today. She wishes she could be here, and she sends her apologies. But I cannot tell you how proud I am to be speaking as an historian to this very historic organization. I know from the real history of the Republican Party, it's the party of Lincoln, obviously, the party of Frederick Douglass, as Kay James is constantly telling me, and the party of Ronald Reagan and the party of Donald Trump. And knowing how storied your history is, Kay also asked me to share with you a bit of our history. As you were preparing for the centennial of this extraordinary organization, the Heritage Foundation was just opening its doors, and that was in the 1970s. And compared to you, we are at the Heritage Foundation a relatively newcomer. We're working very hard to make up for that. Since our founding 45 years ago, Heritage has been a leading center of excellence. It nurtures very thought-provoking research, vitally important dialogue in the nation's capital of Washington, D.C., and unparalleled creativity. The Heritage Foundation generates solutions that shape our great nation. It provides fortitude to our allies and freedom-loving people around the world, not just in the United States, but all over the world. And most important of all, it has left a deeply positive impact on the lives of many Americans. That impact is propelled by the more than 70 Heritage staff members who are now serving in the Trump administration. It is measured by the fact that President Trump, has already embraced an unprecedented 64% of the Heritage Foundation's recommendations, and that is, as from our assessment, that 64% is even higher than what Ronald Reagan did. and is underscored by Heritage being named the most influential think tank in the world by the University of Pennsylvania. It's precisely because of the impact of Heritage's work that President Ronald Reagan paid us many years ago a very high compliment, and I would like to quote him if I may. As he said, "Success in politics is about issues, ideas, and the vision we have for our country in the world. In fact, the very sum and substance of the work of the Heritage Foundation." President Ronald Reagan was absolutely right. I have worked at Heritage for about 35 years, and it is indeed a very special place. It's an unstoppable force for American conservatism. It's the home of a truly extraordinary scholars and staff, and the network of diehard alumni, dedicated trustees, visionary benefactors, and friends like my good friend Frank Gaffney, who I've been working with since the 1980s, who served and knew Ronald Reagan. We've been working together in Washington all these years to advance the conservative cause. You know, together, all of us, not just the Heritage Foundation, not just our network, but of course all the people in this room, we are a bulwark against the left. But more importantly, we are a battleship for liberty. Just look across America today. You see conservatives excluded and shouted down on American campuses. The place, as I talk about in my book, where you're supposed to have an open mind and be tolerant of different points of view. It's the exact opposite of what you see on American campuses. You see judges legislating from the bench, and on immigration acting as if they were President of the United States. You see science corrupted in the name of politics and in the name of ideology. And you see a steady stream of bias and falsehoods from the media. And that's why we feel that the Heritage Foundation is so crucially important today. The fact is, ladies and gentlemen, we are engaged in a battle. It's not just a battle of words that you're hearing from me right now. It's not just a battle of ideas, of which the conservative movement and the Heritage Foundation has spent these last 4 decades fighting for. It's frankly a battle for the future of our country. And you know, it's a battle against a very, very determined foe. It's a battle we absolutely and we must positively win. And let me give you a recent and painful example of how this has happened. As all of you know, just over a month ago, a mentally ill and angry young man walked into the Stoneman Douglas High School in Parkland, Florida, and did what he had long promised to do. He attacked the children attending the class there, and he did not stop until 17 lives had been lost. Now, I'm a father, but I'm also a grandfather, so I know I speak for all of us here when I say that that atrocity hit me to my core. My children are well past school age, but my grandchildren are not. And so when I heard the news, and when I saw the images on the television, I imagined those children could have been mine. And frankly, ladies and gentlemen, they could have been yours as well. An event like this should indeed be a wake-up call, as you have heard on the media, and many of our politicians and the President even has said. But it's not for the reasons that many people, particularly on the left, think. Instead of joining us in a national conversation about school safety, they immediately launched a campaign against the Second Amendment. They manipulated those poor, grieving students in Parkland. They partnered with cynical community organizers like MoveOn.org and Planned Parenthood. And they are poised to descend on Washington, D.C. next Saturday with hundreds of thousands of protesters, all marching under banners emblazoned with just 2 little words: ban guns. If 2 little words could solve what is in fact a deeply complex problem, perhaps I would join them. But it can't and it won't. American schools are so unprotected they are commonly referred to as soft targets. The FBI and law enforcement received dozens of tips in Florida that were never acted on. The Parkland attacker was clearly mentally unstable. But despite all these facts, the left and the media just repeat the same 2 little words: ban guns. And what is worse, They continue to make our schools less safe, as Mayor de Blasio did when he removed policemen and metal detectors from the schools. They ignore reality, just as they prefer to pretend that this problem really isn't about the coarsening of American culture. They don't want to admit that many Americans have been dulled to the dignity and to the value of human life. The sad reality is that today's teenagers are being exposed to shocking violence on television and in the movies, and frankly, also in music lyrics. They played endless hours of video games that reward them for racking up big body counts. Millions of American children are members of fragmented families. They live in broken homes. They suffer from the isolation and from the depression brought on by social media. And they've been deprived of moral teaching very often in their homes, their schools, and the churches that they do not attend. Now, these are the real reasons we have mass shootings in schools. We've always had lots of guns in this country, but only recently have we had a rash of mass school shootings. These are simply facts, and they are facts that the left wants to drown out with their shouts to ban guns. These facts are the fields on which conservatives and all of us in this room and all of us across this great nation must do battle. Kay James and I are absolutely infuriated that liberals would put their cynical politics ahead of sound policy. We cannot allow our children and our grandchildren to be endangered by the radical left anymore. And that's why the Heritage Foundation leapt into the fray right from the start. We were the very first, one of the first to bring attention to what this issue is truly about. It's not about guns, it's about school safety. In an op-ed that Kay James published in Capitol Hill newspaper, read by all the lawmakers, or many lawmakers, she challenged them to get serious about school safety. She called on lawmakers to see that the left's tactic for what it is, and instead to work on real solutions for our schools and for our students. Since then, we've amplified our message with a widely viewed video and aggressive social media, and we're bringing it to more and more Americans thanks to the general support of patriots across this country. You know, we know, all of you know, we're engaged in a difficult fight. But it's one that we must wage, and working together, I have no doubt that we will win it. I know that the Queens Village Republican Club is known as, or I've heard that it is known as a red dot in a sea of blue. Well, let's moor our battleship for liberty to your red dot. As a matter of fact, I understand that 75% of your board has already joined the Heritage Foundation as members. Greatly, greatly pleased to hear that. It's true that when you become an official Heritage member, you join more than 500,000 fellow conservatives in standing up for a whole variety of principles that we know to make up conservatism: free enterprise, limited government, individual liberty, traditional American values, and a strong national defense. And as a member, you also get special access to content and benefits that are not available anywhere else. You get an exclusive membership card, special gatherings where you can meet with fellow conservatives, exclusive updates from our President Kay James, and a free subscription to the Morning Bell, which arrives in your inbox first every weekday morning with the day's most important news, with conservative commentary, not just from Heritage analysts, but sometimes even from people like Frank, and also policy analysis. Heritage has launched, as I have mentioned, this school safety initiative that brings a seriousness to the issue that the issue deserves. We're developing solutions, we're producing materials, we're telling powerful stories to back up our elected representatives who stand for doing the right thing. But we know we can't do it alone. We need your help, and we need it right now. Our team is here. You can see the table over there. Travis and Andrew are there with materials to help you better understand the Heritage Foundation. If you aren't a member, be sure to take a membership brochure. That's this little blue thing that you see there. If you want to take it, and tells you how to get a hold of us. But if you already are a member, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for your support. I came of age, frankly, in the 1960s and became politically aware in the 1980s with Ronald Reagan. And I remember the 60s. They were a difficult time. We were just talking at the reception about what was happening on the campuses and the anti-war protesters and the like. It seemed as if then the country was coming apart. But you know what came after the 1960s? Obviously the 70s, but what came after the 1970s? What came in the 1970s and 1980 was the election of Ronald Reagan. Never forget that. Never forget that. No matter how dark it can be, or how pessimistic some people want us to be, the great thing about America is it always comes back. We faced perilous threats before, and each time Americans have wondered, can we prevail? And each time we have done so. And so it must be, and it will be again. After all, we know none of us have any intention, and Ronald Reagan talked about this a lot. None of us have any intention of telling our grandchildren that their America is less free than the one we inherited. Nor do we intend to ever forget George Washington's guidance that we should always humbly implore from Almighty's protection and favor. And so together and with God's grace, we will fight for what we believe in, because, my friends, America is worth fighting for. Thank you for your kind attention.